Welcome to another episode of Love Selling, Hate Sales. I am your host, Josh Wagner. You know, one of the biggest things we see with sales and sales leadership is that folks get moved up to management, especially in frontline management positions, or even as they move up the ranks in maybe a VP or a CRO role, and they just become pipeline monitors. They don't do anything more than walk around. I think of Office Space, right? You got the guy walking around and going, Peter, what's happening? And it's basically the equivalent of what's going on with XYZ deal in your pipeline. When the reality is you can probably go into Salesforce or whatever CRM and find out what's going on with that pipeline. You ask the people and you're hitting them on the head with a hammer every single day to say, update your deals in CRM. So why not use it? Instead, what the sellers typically need is coaching. They need guidance. They need to understand why the playbook you put in place is there. They need to understand how to leverage these plays, how to create leverage in a sales cycle, how to negotiate. There are a million different things that happen in sales that require coaching. And to talk a little bit about that, I've brought Cory Bray to the call. He is the co-founder of CoachCRM, interesting, and also an 8-time author on the topic. Cory, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be here.
Yeah. So coaching, right? Like we think about sales leadership and everything that it turns into is a burn down, a pipeline burn down.
Yeah.
I've been in that before, right? So how do we get more effective at embracing coaching?
Well, the question is, are you trying to get as much as you can out of your pipeline today, or are you trying to get as much as you can out of your people? And one of the things that we always say is coach the player, not the play. Zoom out. And yeah, you got to close deals. You can't stop operations to help improve this person. A couple things. One is if the person's really struggling and they can't close those deals on their own, why'd you hire them in the first place? Why'd you promote them into that role? Because if your doctor can't do the surgery or your accountant can't do your taxes, do you trust them? Then why are you putting a salesperson in a position to do a job where they can't do it on their own and they've got to have somebody micromanaging their pipeline, which just doesn't exist in other white collar professions. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the really big piece, like you said, people get promoted in all these roles. Oftentimes they've never been formally trained in sales management. They've never been formally trained in coaching, whereas all of these other professions have training, certification, school, graduate degrees, all this other stuff. Whereas a lot of sales managers got a 2.8 GPA in political science from XYZ State University. They sold stuff for a couple of years and like, cool, you're a manager now.
Or like me, they're a broadcasting major.
Yeah, there you go. So the voice sounds great when you're doing your pipeline inspection. Yeah. Outside of that, why are you doing it this way? Oh, because Bob used to do it that way when I worked with Bob one time. So your data point's 1 or 2, and that's what you got. And then it's like that Michael Keaton movie. You make a copy of a copy of a copy. What do you have? Something that doesn't work out too well.
What was that? Multiplicity?
Multiplicity, mid-90s Michael Keaton.
Boom.
Yeah, we're crushing 90s movies. We got Office Space already. All right, let's do this.
This is going to be a really good show. So there's probably a little bit of an onion we need to peel back a little bit because, you talked about if they can't run the deal, why did you hire them in the first place? So, I think people get super myopic on the deal, right? And that's what people dive into, they drill into, whatnot. So if we go all the way back, what is coaching in sales?
Coaching, well, let me define training first. Let's start with training because I think to define coaching, you've got to define training. Training is equipping people with the skills they need to do the job. Coaching is helping people apply those skills to drive performance. You can't coach somebody on something they haven't been trained on before. You can't coach me on open heart surgery because I don't know where to start. And if I start trying to coach you on chest at a certain level, I don't know what level you're at, but if I coach you at a level above you, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to be like, what are you talking about? You got to work the pen. I don't even know where the knife can move. And so that's the level has to be correct. And so coaching becomes a subsequent activity to training, which also isn't done well in a lot of organizations. And you just get the snowball effect of incompetence.
Yeah. And training's what a crazy Wild West that is in sales, right?
Yeah.
What do you typically get? A product brochure and a slap on the ass?
Oh, yeah. But you have to make sure that you tell the product team that you're really impressed with the features that they built.
Yeah.
And you're going to go tell your prospects all about them.
Yeah. So the old feature function play, that one works every time, right? Especially on a cold call, just throwing out some features and the benefits, that typically gets people all fired up.
Yeah, the thing I always say about that is you talk about the features, and then the prospect has to do mental gymnastics to figure out why the heck that matters to him. It's like, oh, cool. So I'm going to use that. Why? Oh, my phone's ringing.
And hang up. Oh, the
Yeah.
reception's break. I can't. All right, bye.
Going through a tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. So what then, if we look at coaching, right? Like, what should the coachee expect from coaching, and what should the coach expect to deliver in coaching?
Yeah. So from the coach's perspective, the ideal process, if we think of a timeline, is that we want to start off with diagnosis. And the place to begin with diagnosis is, for each person you're going to coach, let's list out all the things we could coach them on. Not just pick the one that comes to mind, not just pick that one deal or that one call, or we're annoyed with their calendar. Let's list out all the things that we could work with them on. Let's prioritize that list where you've got high impact things at the top, or maybe a quick win if you want to get something going. And then before you pick that one thing you want to coach on, because you only want to coach one thing at a time, because if I throw you 7 basketballs at once, how many basketballs are you going to catch? Coach one thing at a time. Now there's options where you could go to, but I'm not getting into edge cases right now. Coach one thing at a time. What's the root cause? And again, let's talk about other professions that have their stuff figured out. Manufacturing, for example, root cause analysis, Toyota 5 whys. Why is that the case? Oh, well, why is that the case? Why is that the case? Why is that? Finally, you get down to the point where you're like, oh, I actually understand what's going on. Because you might have a list that's something like, well, Cory doesn't ask good discovery questions, doesn't tell customer stories, doesn't set next steps, and his responses to objections, oh man, those are just terrible. Okay, cool. So I could coach all of those things. Might take 4 weeks, might take a quarter to get through that list. Or I might say, well, we have a sales playbook. All of that stuff's in there. Maybe what I should coach Cory on is doing 15 minutes of preparation before each meeting, so he knows what discovery questions he's going to ask, the customer stories to tell, the responses to the objections that are common given the persona, given the market segment that you're talking to. Then I can distill it down to that one root cause, focus on that, have the coaching conversation, hold the person accountable to doing what we agreed on, which I'll dig more into the coaching conversation in a second, hold them accountable to what we agreed on, and then boom, it's resolved. We move on to the next thing. So by constantly having this prioritized backlog focused on priority and root cause, knocking out each one of these challenges or opportunities one at a time, we're taking that person, we're building them up. Each person has a capacity. Each person is utilizing a fraction of that capacity. In trucking, a truck might hold 48,000 pounds of material. Well, if you only load 30,000, you're wasting space. You're under your capacity. Your capacity utilization doesn't make any sense. Same thing with a person, only it would be terrifying to see the actual capacity utilization of human beings in sales, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know that we want to go down that road for sure.
No, that's nuts. And then to answer your other part of your question briefly, from the person, the coachee's perspective, if you tell them what to do, if it's command and control, hey, Josh, you will do this, and they don't buy into it. They'll probably nod their head and say, yes, sir, sounds good, blah, 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 see you later, and then leave. So when we're coaching, we've got a framework that we use, but I'll just state it very simpler. Use the Socratic method, ask questions, get them to realize what the problem is, get them to come up with an action plan. You can use questions to guide it or even make it more realistic. If they say they're going to do crazy stuff, then they own it. It was their idea. They committed to it. Boom. And then you just hold them accountable to what they committed to, and you're in business.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty, we do the same thing with our prospects, right? We want to make them think it's their idea, not our idea. But I think, from the standpoint of, as a sales leader, how much of our time should be committed to coaching?
More than it is today, I think. Yeah, 30% plus in an ideal world. And when I say sales leader, I'm frontline sales manager, because you think about a salesperson lives in the CRM because their job is to work on deals. Well, a sales manager's job is to get more out of their people. And is going to meetings with marketing getting more out of their people? Is having all of these other administrative activities and exercises getting more out of their people? Or is what I described before, which is, for each person, I know the one thing I'm going to work with them on, and I'm going to help them through that. I'm not going to show up to their calls. If you run a marathon with me on your back, did I run a marathon? It's what all these sales managers do. Like, oh yeah, team selling. I'm gonna join your meeting. I'll jump in, And then the manager's just like, well, I don't know how to coach, so I guess I'll just close your deal for you, bro. And the great salespeople hate it when other people do their jobs for them, so they quit. The bad salespeople love it. They're like, yeah, boss, come close my deals. And then you just end up with a team of people that suck.
You might as well just have the frontline manager.
Yeah, totally. No, I got in an argument with the CEO about this last year, and he was like, I need my sales managers to do the job. I was like, well, what do the salespeople do? He's like, well, if the sales manager can't do a job, salespeople can't do it. Why do you have salespeople? He didn't like that. It's like,
yeah,
dude, if you don't believe in coaching, then it's hard for me to do business with you.
Yeah. I do think it's one of those things where, yeah, it's kind of like marketing, right? You think about CEOs and their expectations of things, right, in general. And marketing is one of those black holes, right? Like in their mind, sales is very tangible. It's the cash register ringing. We're going to invest in sales. Marketing is this black hole. I don't know what it is. Is it the pretty picture department? Are they buying ads? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So it becomes this black hole. And if you're a marketer and you run into that leader who doesn't really understand or believe in marketing, you're fighting an uphill battle, right?
Yeah.
Same accord. You're a sales leader and you come in and you're like, listen, I'm going to come over. I'm going to be your VP of sales. And I believe that the way to get the most out of people is by coaching and creating a community that's tight knit and built around doing X, Y, Z. If they're not bought in, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because if they just want all the revenue real fast, then just hire more senior salespeople. Don't go spend $70,000 to $70,000 base salary and think you're going to get the best salesperson in the world. No offense to anyone that's where they're at right now, but you're not there yet. You're probably on your way, but there's always someone better than you. And people are always like, oh, we only hire A players. I was like, A players aren't going to ever work at your company. The B players already work for someone else. So you only hire C players or below if you're just going out to Indeed or LinkedIn and reviewing random job applications, unless you find a catch.
Yeah. Yeah. A players just aren't on the market, to your point.
No. A players are handcuffed to someone else or in charge of things.
Tell me about it. Yeah. So I guess that brings up an interesting point around coaching and hiring, right? So how does coaching fit into your hiring process?
Part of the hiring process should be defining the competencies required for the job. So in a sales job, it could be discovery, demo or presentation, running a sales process, maybe land and expand, things like that. And when you're defining the role, at least internally, if not as part of the formal job description, you got to be very clear about what competencies do you need to be mastered coming into this role, and which ones are you okay if they're still developing. So it might be somebody that's got really good discovery skills, really good presentation skills. They've never upsold anything in their life. Okay, cool. So I can work with that person and teach them the upsell piece. But if I don't have clarity around how good they actually are at discovery through some kind of pre-hire assessment or watching some of their actual recorded discovery calls, not doing some silly little 5-minute role play with them. If I don't know that, then I'm bringing this unknown entity into the organization and expecting output. That's like doing a blind auction for a machine, putting it in your manufacturing facility and wondering why its production isn't as high as you wanted it to be.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point. I had a conversation a few episodes back with Amy Volas. I don't know if you know her.
Oh, yeah.
Avenue Talent Partners. Yeah, super sharp. And, she brought up the analogy of, hiring VPs of sales or sales leadership as a CEO, but not knowing what skills you're looking for or what superpowers, as she called it, you're looking for, right? Like Every sales leader is not the same. You've got sales leaders who are great at pushing buttons and pulling levers on dashboards and understanding where you need to go. You got sales leaders that are great at building out scale within an organization and process. You've got all these different types of sales leaders. And she said, of these 5 different superpowers, you get to pick 2, Mr. CEO. You don't get someone with all of them.
Right.
And it sounds like the same thing you're saying with the coaching, right? Like, what attributes am I looking for in a seller? What are the must-haves in this job? And then what can
anybody
I
that's got them all has the next job. It's just like the sales leader has all 5 of those figured out. They're either a COO, a CEO, or retired.
Yeah, 100%.
Because anyone that's got all those, like, they're probably rich unless they're not good at marriage or gambling. Like people who are bad at marriage and bad at gambling, like, yeah, they're going to have some challenges there, but like they're already rich. And then do they want to work at your company doing the thing that you want them to do? They probably want your job.
Yeah.
So
but one of my buddies said it best. He told me one time, he said, Josh, you're good, right? Because your problem is you're not a lunatic. He goes, the really fucking rich people are lunatics. He goes, you're not a lunatic. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I guess that's a compliment, not compliment. I'm not sure what to take from this conversation, but okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. But it's interesting though, too, as you apply it to hiring sales leadership, right? What is their ability to coach the things you're looking for? And most people don't have that kind of clarity.
Right.
So how do you, what are you doing in the marketplace to help drive that kind of clarity or help understand or help evangelize coaching? I mean, give me a sense for how do you elicit change?
Well, the first thing that we did was we built this as part of our consulting firm Close Loop years ago. And we trained managers on how to coach. So we wrote a book called The 5 Secrets of a Sales Coach, and then have an online course, a consulting training product that rolls out of that. And people were like, oh, wow, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. Oh, this actually works. Oh, I can go coach. It's easy. I can do a Socratic method. I can ask questions instead of telling people what to do. They actually buy into it. I've got an easy way to hold people accountable that doesn't sound like it's micromanagement. Okay, cool. So we did that and then spun it out into a software business. And so it helps managers stay on track in terms of diagnosis and holding people accountable, gets the reps somewhere where they know exactly what they need to be focused on, and then surfaces insights and analytics to executives to let them know what's going on with coaching, who's coaching, who are they coaching, what are they coaching them on, how's that working, how's that tied to performance while integrating into the CRM and things like that, and then creating a culture of coaching. Because it can't just be something that some people do sometimes. It's got to really be, how do we make the tide rise? And so we can get more out of our people. And then when we promote them, we haven't created this house of cards. Whereas a lot of companies are like, oh yeah, after you're an SDR for a year, you'd be an AE. Okay, cool. But all you did as an SDR was send emails and beg people to take meetings. And now you're going to have to go do discovery and demo and contract negotiations and things like that. How does past performance, how is that indicative of future results? It's not. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think about, how do you have that conversation with a CEO, right? And especially if you're banging on the doors of someone who is struggling to get buy-in for this type of, boiling down the house of cards. And what I'm thinking of is, depending on their life cycle, are you looking to raise money or are you looking to exit, right? And you need to build inherent value in what you're doing. And there's so much inherent value in the ability to acquire customers or cross-sell customers, whatever it may be. If there's not an approach to teach people how to do that in your methodology, then it is, like you said, a house of cards. So I feel like you can put a ROI model around that, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's metrics that are obvious, like what's our average deal size? How's that compared to what we want it to be? What's our win rate? What's our length of our deal cycle? What's quota attainment look by company, by team, by person? Those are really, and then you get in the weeds, like what's our conversion rate from stage to stage, and how's that vary by person based on things like how they score it on that competency map, or how much experience they have, or how much money they make. This is not hard math. It's second grade math that is hidden inside of databases that we as salespeople don't know how to access. And so we can't roll it up. We can't aggregate it. And then, until we came along, you can't tie that to coaching activity to see how coaching drives performance. And that's what we've decided to do. Because then I go to CEO and say, look, your win rate's here, your goal's here. You're not going to get there with this win rate unless you go pour a bunch more money into marketing, which they obviously love doing. So you can either do that, because you can always do that. Just be like, oh, go spend another $5 million in marketing. Cool, you'll get there. Or we can tweak the win rate, we can tweak the deal size, we can tweak the velocity, we can do something like that. But it's not going to be by telling the salespeople to do it. It's going to be by identifying something that they can control, because salespeople can only control two things: their quality of activity and their quantity of activity. They cannot control outcomes. And so that's what we've got to coach to, is to coach to the activity, not to the outcome, and the outcomes will come.
Yeah. So those insights, I think that's really interesting. So what types of insights is it? Is it just like a funnel analysis and saying, we've got these levers we can pull. What do you want to pull? Or what kind of insights are you serving up?
Yeah, I mean, that's those are the high level quantitative things.
Yeah.
And then you go deeper, let's still stay with CRM, because CRM is a great place to diagnose, and you can go other places too. So in the CRM, what do next steps look like? Do we have next steps? Are the actual next steps the prospects agreed to, or is this Cory called Josh on Tuesday, which isn't a real next step? And then whatever your sales methodology is, do you actually use it? So if there's a field called pain, which most people are of the belief that we should sell to pain, even though I think people that entered the workforce in 2015, in 2021, they're like, this is so old school. It's like, cool, call me in a year. Nobody's called me. So does it exist? Like, are discovery notes in there? Are they good? So these are things for the managers to look at. And then they can also go in and say, all right, well, we're not getting next steps in the CRM and our deals are stalling after demo. Well, okay, now let's go to our call recording software. What are we doing at the end of a call? Okay. What are we doing to tee up the end of the call at the beginning of the call? They're like, oh man, this person's all over the place. Well, let's go look at their calendar now. What's time management look like? Or if they're in prospecting, let's go look at their sales engagement automation software, whatever it is. Let's talk to them, talk to their peers, talk to their manager. And all of this world is full of data and information, the business intelligence tools, things like Atrium. But then we zoom out and we say, all right, we found all these problems. We prioritize them, we stack rank them, we do a root cause analysis, and then we can coach the player, not the play. So we're not micromanaging the deal, the call, the calendar, whatever it is. We're prioritizing, so we're focused on the things that are actually going to have impact. That's where managers need to be.
Yeah, I always try to draw parallels between, sports and sales. I think there has a lot naturally.
Oh, yeah.
But, you hear in sports all the time, like you can't coach Tom Brady the same way you coach the second team middle linebacker.
Yep.
Right? So how much does that apply in sales and your ability to coach people?
Lots. So the way that it comes out, I'll give you the simple way is figure out where the person's been, figure out where they're going. So where have they been in the past? Lots of people in sales played sports. If you didn't, don't get triggered. I'll get to you in a second. People are always triggered. They're like, I was in choir. I was like, that's cool. Like choir's awesome, but nobody wins in choir. Like you participate. I don't know. Again, maybe you do. Don't send me hate mail if you win in choir. I'd love to learn. I won't say that again. But with sports, it's like, all right, so what'd you play? So I'll do a conversation. So let me do it with you, Josh. So hey, Josh, what sports did you play growing up?
Hockey.
Hockey. All right. Who's your hockey coach that you were most impacted by?
Ernie Baxter.
Ernie. All right. So how did Ernie coach you?
Hard.
Tell me what that means. What's that look like day to day?
There was a lot of chew on the ice. There was a lot of sprinting, and from time to time, getting your freaking clock cleaned by a dude who, is 3 years removed from professional hockey. Got it.
And then what type of impact did that hard charging approach have on your performance?
Do you just need to be on your game? Like you can't take shifts off. Like if you're going to take shifts off, you're going to get taken off the ice, right? And when you're playing club hockey as a kid, your parents are paying for it.
Yeah.
Right? And they're writing pretty big checks. So, are you making this worth your parents' while?
Yeah. How'd you react to that style of coaching?
I liked it, so for me, I'm not an inherently intense dude.
Yeah.
But I like competition. So having those people that kind of tweak me a little bit helps me.
Okay. So
get a little bit more intense.
I just talked to you for a minute about this topic. Now, for the next 2 years that you're on my team, I know a tool in my tool belt that I can use to motivate you. I know that it's okay if I spit a little Copenhagen on the ground and I'm hard charging, I'm direct, and then I can use other people watching around you, just like what your parents were doing, to help motivate you and support you in a direct way. And we don't have to have this 5-minute fluffy conversation like tell them something good, tell them the bad thing, tell them something good sandwich idea. No. I can be direct with you. Now, there might be somebody else that told me that similar story and they said, yeah, Ernie hurt my feelings and I quit after 3 days. So first question is, do I want that person on my sales team? Probably not. But then the second piece is, I know I'm not going to be as direct with them as I am with you. So I'm going to have a slightly different coaching style and approach when I really want to get the most out of you. So that's the first piece, which is where they've been. And the second piece is, where are they going? Where are they going professionally? Where are they going personally? Personally, buy a house, have a family, have kids. It's probably something that requires a certain amount of money. So we've got something to shoot for. And then professionally, do they want to be in management? All these people are like, I want to be in management. It's like, Bro, you don't even use the CRM. Your job in management is going to be forecasting. How am I going to promote you into a job where you're holding people accountable to doing something that you've never done? So you can start to tie it together and say, all right, so when you're a management a year from now, how do you think you're going to interact with the CRM? Oh yeah, Josh is going to ask me about my, okay, what are you going to do if people don't have the CRM? How do you think that, Terry's going to feel when I go, Terry, the CEO, and say, I want to promote you to manager. And Terry's gonna be like, wait, the guy that never updates the CRM, why do I want him in charge of people updating? And you get through this type of conversation, you're like, oh, wow, okay, that makes sense. And you start to build motivation to do different things, change behavior, have accountability and all of that, using the tools of how they were coached in the past successfully, as well as where they want to go professionally and personally. So that's the way I personalize it.
Are you coaching self-awareness at all?
Good question. Give me an example.
Well, the example you just used, right? Like you talked about, I want to be in management, right? Because oftentimes sales doesn't have this path of promotion other than you're a rock star or you're on a PIP. Either way, you can get put into frontline management, right?
Yeah.
So, and then frontline manager, then, okay, what am I, a director, a VP, a CRO? Depending on the size of the company, there's varying layers in between that.
Yep.
And you, like you said, you hear, well, I want to be in management. How are you coaching that self-awareness too? Is that your personality? Like for me personally, I don't want to be in fucking management. Like,
yeah, totally. No, well, I think that's what it goes back to the competency matrix, which is, okay, you've got the set of competencies to be a salesperson, discovery, demo, sales process management, whatever. Well, if you're in management, maybe you've got things like coaching, accountability, hiring, leadership, mentorship, things like that, being able to read a report, a dashboard. All these people, they hit their glass ceiling and they're like, it's not fair because the CFO won't talk to me. I was like, yeah, because you don't know how to use a spreadsheet. You think pivot tables are hard. Good. You can become a master of pivot tables faster than you can watch one season of the Kardashians. I guarantee it. And
yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, what do I need to do from a skill set perspective and mindset perspective and knowledge perspective to succeed in that next role? And then how can I start practicing some of those things today? Lots of opportunities to do that if you know what they are. But if you don't know what they are, it's tough.
Yeah. I just think that self-awareness thing is so underrated in sales.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many opportunities that are opened up to you that you don't even realize because you are having dozens of conversations a week with different types of businesses, different types of use case, different types of personalities. You're creating this network that you don't even realize. And there's this whole world out there that you could really do, but you just are thinking this straight line, like, I want to be a sales manager.
Yeah. Right.
So just even getting people to think differently.
I think part of that is because people have an overinflated sense of their capabilities.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I did a LinkedIn post on this today. It was funny. So if you've got someone that shoots an 89 in golf on their home course, they probably think they're a pretty good golfer. But then they go play a hard course from the tips and they shoot like a 120. Well, they suck because, Rory just shot a 63 there last week. You just did twice as many strokes as another human that's probably shorter than you.
And 1,000 times better at golf than you.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not good at golf. That's the thing. I think people think they're better than they are. And you see all this all the time. It's the people that have been selling for 2.5 years. And they're like, here's how to sell better. I'm going to tell you every day my tips and tricks and trade. And if you tell me I'm not allowed to tell you, then you're an ageist or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, man. Like y'all can do whatever you want. I don't really care, but beware that, you go to a rodeo, you ain't going to ride a bull.
Correct. I just think that self-awareness, man, to your point, like, I mean, using the golf analogy, there's literally 125 people in the world good at golf.
Yeah. Right. And they all think they suck. And they all have a coach and they wake up early and they play every day and they play on their off days.
Right.
And they build holes in their yard, literally. Like Tiger has 3 holes in his yard in Florida, doesn't he? The guys that live in the Midwest probably have a whole course.
Yeah, exactly. So just that self-awareness of your strengths and weaknesses and how do you leverage both of them? And I think from a coaching standpoint, right? Like that's where I think you can really peel back the onion because I love knowing what I'm not good at because I can figure out how to push that off to somebody else or how to use another lever somewhere. Like just those types of things I think are super impactful for someone to help bring out.
Man, I got hammered on Friday. Not like that. Wow.
Like
somebody's listening to this. They're like, bro, me too. This guy's hot. No,
yeah, man.
No, I got hammered by an individual who I was talking about my business, and he said something to the effect of, well, that's all great, but I don't really care where you've been. I care about where you're going. And I heard all these things about where you've been. That's fine. But I didn't hear what I needed to hear about where you're going. I was like, wow, so guess what I did? I told my whole team, I was like, guess what weakness I identified? This, that, and the other. And then we started working on it. It was like, okay, so there's a time and a place to talk about this.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought that the weighting I was giving to where we've been versus where we're going was the appropriate weighting. And this dude who's got way more credentials than I have just destroyed me.
Yep.
Which goes back to one of my favorite pieces of advice in life, which is hang out with people with lots of gray hair as often as you possibly can, because you're going to get your mind blown.
Yes. Yeah. We were just having this conversation at dinner the other night. Like, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I would much prefer to be the dumbest person in the room than the smartest.
Yeah. You ain't going to learn anything from, I mean, you might learn some cool party tricks, but that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah. I mean, so I'm going through a similar process as you. Me and a partner are in the process of starting a venture capital firm, right? Our growth equity firm. Well, trust me, there are plenty of gaps in our skill set and knowledge and things as we're doing this, but we're going to do it and we're going to be successful, but we are getting holes poked in us quite a bit right now as we talk to people. And, you got to understand how to take that and use it for positive.
Well, it's when you're at that stage, I asked another person with lots of gray hair, I said, am I fair to assume that traction solves most problems? And he looked me in the eye and he said, no. He said, traction solves all problems. And then he goes on, he's like, it is so easy for anybody to sit back in their chair and tell you why something won't work and why it's not going to be there and all these types of things. But you got traction, they're like, cool, that's great. Yeah. So what's your investment thesis if it's public information, or you can tell me later?
Yeah, for sure. The investment thesis at a high level is that we're trying to play against traditional venture capital, right? Where everyone's going to say, go hire a VP of sales and a bunch of SDRs, a bunch of salespeople. And, that's your path to growing and scaling your revenue and solving your revenue problems. Yeah. Our thesis is that there are more effective, impactful ways to go to market, specifically by building out ecosystems and channel partner ecosystems that help you scale where you don't need the volume of talent. You can do the same amount of revenue with two really good people.
Yeah.
As you can with an army of salespeople through a partner ecosystem. And now, how do you build that? How do you scale it? How do you build those relationships? And then that other piece of that puzzle is, because you're partnering with complementary products and services to you, you're also finding a faster path to your next round of funding, maybe your next exit, who acquires you, building those things in. So that's the big piece of our thesis. There are other things built into it, but, using, our background to our advantage. Now, where there are gaps that have been identified, right? We're good operators. We've exited, we've done this and that, doing deal diligence. How do you manage like those are the gaps that we have, right? So we're looking for, potentially other things to fill those gaps. But
I love that. I love that thesis. Well, and the coolest thing is that we have the best businessman of our time running the do more with less playbook right in front of our face every day. And so we can draw some inspiration from him.
Certainly.
It's like, how much can you, I was thinking, it was like, I bet he can get Twitter down to 500 employees and still have it run functionally.
Possibly.
Because I've been to Twitter. I've hung out at Twitter.
Have you?
There was not work going on. There was a lot of socializing, a lot of fudge. They had these fudge, I'll never forget this, these two stands in the middle of the cafeteria. And it was a big block of it was black or brown fudge, and then a big block of white fudge. And each one of them had a hammer, like a mallet, like a metal big hammer and an ice pick. And you go ice pick off your fudge. And that was on the cafeteria. I think that was on the 6th floor. The 5th floor cafeteria didn't have it. So we went to the 5th floor cafeteria because there was some, whatever type of food. You go up to 6th floor, like, oh, you're going to get your fudge. It's like, y'all are just on vacation over here.
Yeah. And you talked earlier about all the opinions, right? Like you can't say one thing or another thing.
Oh, yeah, everybody has opinions. And like
the opinions on what he's doing are crazy. Like, listen, I'm just watching the show.
Yeah. Hey, it's like, oh, cool. Tell someone how to run their, it's like, it's funny too, because he's, at this point, it's private equity. Like he took a company private.
Right. He wrote a $4 billion check and do it.
What's the private equity playbook? Make it efficient, jack up EBITDA. Okay. So you're losing $4 million a month. Let's turn that into a positive number. And you got all this silliness and shenanigans going on. Well, let's get rid of that. Oh, and by the way, if we can expose previous silliness and shenanigans, let's use that for marketing and then get user count.
Exactly right. Exactly.
How smart is that? That's just
Well, again, there's not too many rooms where he's not the smartest guy in the room. So I don't know who he's learning.
Totally. And I guarantee you the people around him are also just ridiculous. People like that don't follow. He's on stage, but anytime someone's on stage, they've always got people around him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was this morning, I did a bunch of calls. So I'm helping a friend of mine. He runs a cloud computing company. And I'm helping them go to market, right? We're creating channel partner ecosystem. We're trying to come to the pull through, all that stuff. So I'm on a lot of calls. We're doing a lot of work in EMEA and the UAE. So I'm up really early doing those calls. And I do a call this morning with a bunch of data scientists, right? They're talking to me about, and a customer about the back end, right? Like how the machine learning works, all this kind of stuff. And I got off that call and I tell my wife this morning, I'm like, man, the value chain in the world is crazy. Like, there are all these people that are just on another level creating things, right? But then there's idiots like me who go out and bring it to market. So there is like this yin and yang and ebb and flow of all this stuff. Cause sometimes I just feel like such a moron because, the people that actually create things and create all this stuff are so damn smart. But, there's value. There's a value chain. There's a food chain, so to speak, of how this thing works. And, we all are feeding off of one another and we need each other to live. So I think it's to survive. So I think it's pretty interesting.
Well, you just execute. You're probably a really smart guy too, but it's the people that are sitting over there with their 2,300 chess scores, ELO ratings. They don't want to go talk to people all day.
Right. Yeah. That's what it comes down to for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I'm doing this. I mean, I thought I was going to do a computer program. I was like, I want to talk to people all day. You're telling me there's a job where you can just talk to people all day and get paid? That's cool.
But that's some people's nightmare.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's fine. Yeah, so we all mix guns and butters from Economics 101.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, Cory, this has been super fun. Why don't you give the audience a little rundown on CoachCRM, where they can find you, any of the books, whatever you want to promote.
Yeah, well, thanks. So, CoachCRM, if you're a B2B company and you're concerned that you might not be in a position to hit your goals next year and think that your managers might be able to get more out of your people, check us out at CoachCRM.com. You can sign up for a demo or a trial. We have a special trial offer. And if you want to learn more about the coach framework and what we do, we got the 5 Secrets of a Sales Coach that's on Amazon. Or if you send me a LinkedIn message, I'll send you a free copy, US only, because Amazon's annoying internationally. Not me, it's them.
Awesome. Yeah, Cory, this has been super fun. 3 takeaways I had. 1, training and coaching aren't the same thing, right? That's a big thing that we should remember. We're training a skill versus applying it. I think that was a big one. I love the diagnosis early on. So understanding what are all the things that you could be coaching, and then really getting into the root cause and only focusing on one thing at a time. And then the other one was really just the specificity required to know what you're looking for, whether it's an AE, a leader. Those are the things that get specific. You can't just say, hey, this is what we need. There are so many different flavors of people out there that have different backgrounds and skill sets and things. So know what you know, what you need to know and what you're looking for. All right, Cory, thanks for joining the show. It's been awesome to have you.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.